and he says, "It's okay, I'm here now."
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Download. Today, and we got a full house. 9. I'm not sure that we can have more
Live's
than
longest running weekly business
LinkedIn live stream. Yeah.
It started on the 4th of May, which is Star Wars Day for many of you, 2021.
Wow.
Wow.
So approaching 2 years.
That's remarkable.
That is remarkable.
Which is why Tim just talked about it.
Yes, worthy of remark. Yes, and we got a full house, 9 of us today, which I'm not sure we can have more than 9 on this platform on screen at any one time. So
it's a maximum license, I think, for the money that you pay. Yeah.
Is it? Oh dear. Well, we need to make sure that we keep it thinned down to 9 then, don't we? So welcome everybody. Today we are talking about are we all working in a family business? Now, I think all of us kind of think of family businesses as being the local shop or your dad's accounting firm that you go and work within or whatever it is. But I think that there's been a big shift over the last 2 years with remote working and the advent of digital and the rise of social, and it's having a dramatic effect on how we view ourselves, interaction in our home, because let's be honest, most of us are working from our spare bedrooms most of the time. So it means that our life partners, our spouses, our families can come and often do come and join the call. And also very much aware of what it is that we're doing. But also that glimpse into somebody's home life means that we're much more connected to people than we were before. You know, I know what your spare bedroom looks like. I know when you're not in your spare bedroom, when you're phoning in from a coffee shop or whatever it is. And that makes me feel much more connected to you, excuse me, to you and to the other people. And the question is, do we all feel that we're more connected to people? Do we all feel that we're part of an extended family? Do we all feel that our families are more involved in what it is that we do? And is that also true when we work within a large corporate? We're now able to have and develop friendships and relationships with people across an organization in a way that would have seemed very alien 2 or 3 years ago. But before we get on to debating that, let's all introduce ourselves. Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and welcome everybody.
Alex.
I'm Alex Abbott, founder of Sapiro and proud DLA partner. Good to be here today.
Will.
Hello, everybody. I'm a DLA associate, so work with Tim and Adam especially, and I'm also an independent learning consultant and coach.
Tracy.
Hello, everyone. I am Tracy Morrison, the Canadian representative on the panel today of TLB Coaching and Events, and I'm too a proud partner of DLA Ignite.
Lenwood.
Hi, I'm Lenwood Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of Accelerate and a partner of DLA Ignite. We help companies move faster with digital transformation.
Is that the Lenwood Ross as seen on Forbes?
Yeah. Well, the one and the same.
One and the same.
Thank you.
Rob.
Good morning, all. I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results, based just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and also a proud DLA Ignite partner.
Jensen.
Hi, I'm Jensen Abbott. I work for Sapiro, and I am also a proud partner of DLA Ignite.
And welcome, Jensen. This is your
first show. Jordan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jordan Abbott, working for Sapiro as well. Proud DLA Ignite partner, and one that's probably up for debate. I'd say the best looking Abbott boy on the show today.
I don't really think that's up for debate, is it? And then last but least, it's me. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm Tim's business partner. So welcome, everybody. So, family business, where are we with that debate?
Ooh, can I go first?
Please.
Just because Nicholas, so for those of you who don't know, my 4-year-old son, Nicholas, yesterday, so I was working in the morning, which is what I do because he's still sleeping. He came down, opened the door, came in, sat behind me on my chair and said, "Mom, you've had too much screen time." and I was like, there's some truth to that based on how much screen time I give him at one given time. But that was just like the first thing that came up to me when we're talking about family business, because there's less ability to separate business and family. And then it's almost like you're forced to figure out like what is the harmony here that can exist, because I don't believe in balance. But yeah, you can't really stop your family from being involved in your business. And something that I've really been recently looking at, I started monitoring my internet usage on my phone to see like which apps am I spending time looking at on my phone. And the first week I got the report, I was like, oh my God, I spent like 4.5 hours a day on my phone, not just on my, like, that doesn't include what I'm doing on my computer, on my phone. And that's like, some of that is me learning Spanish, but a lot of it is like being on LinkedIn. I am learning Spanish, fun fact. But a lot of it is LinkedIn or replying to emails or work-related things. And I'm doing a lot of that while I'm with Nicholas. So it's been interesting to me to like explore this perspective of what is like, literally, I'm an entrepreneur and also have a family business just because the rest of my family is by default involved.
So is that a good or bad thing, do you think? You know, the merging of these two worlds and the fact that you can you can simultaneously say, I'm going to leave my desk for half an hour to go and do lunch for Nicholas, but equally you end up saying, I'm going to leave Nicholas for half an hour to go and do a call. So is this on balance a good thing or a bad thing?
I think probably for everybody it's different. And I don't believe in things being inherently good or inherently bad. It's how we interpret them. So like yesterday we made cream puffs because I was like, I've never made a cream puff, and Nicholas had never made a cream puff. So that was our activity we did for the afternoon. And I had to leave making cream puffs. Between the cream puffs, and the cream puffs actually turned out quite good, the pastry cream turned out terrible. So pros cons. But I had to leave in between to go and do a call, 30-minute call. And it was really interesting because while that morning when Nicholas came down and he had told me I had too much screen time, I went and I did a 30-minute call. I came back and we continued baking, and he was like, oh, that was quick. So I think we all have to figure out, like, what about this works? What about it doesn't work? I know one of the things when I started my business or when I moved from corporate into running my own business that I noticed is that I used to have this like decompression time between work and home in the commute. And I think a lot of people lost that going into remote work. And so now I need to find a different way to create decompression time, but I don't need to create it. Like, did anybody really like sitting in traffic? I didn't actually like sitting in traffic, right? That was my decompression time. So now I get to like go for a walk outside, or I get to write for a little bit, or paint. I do watercolor painting. So like I can paint for 20 minutes and I can create that decompression, and then I can come right back to Nicholas. Or we were talking about this before we came on, but I don't know if all of you remember when Nicholas flew Jupiter across the screen, but those are watercolor planets, right? So we painted those planets out of watercolor. It combined two things. So I think it's more about like, there's this new like creation that has to happen in order for it to work. I don't think it's inherently good or bad. I think it can work if you find ways that can make it work.
But I think part of the question is, you used to have that decompress. Do you need to have a decompress? because I love what I do, so I recognise that I'm very privileged from that perspective. So for me, leaving a comment against or answering a question, a DM that I get on LinkedIn at 10 o'clock at night, or responding to an email at 7 o'clock in the morning before I've had breakfast and my first cup of coffee, I don't see that as being a hardship or an intrusion, because I have the freedom to work at 10 o'clock at night, but also to take off 11 till 12 o'clock during the day if I want to. And I think that increasingly this hybrid working and this different work-life balance that we have, because we all have an expectation that I'm gonna send you a text now, and then I sit there drumming my fingers waiting for you to respond, which is completely unreasonable. In the days of sending letters, you would have sent a letter, you would have waited a week, you'd have seen what the response was going to be. Now you expect an immediate response, and we all do that. But also we serve that because we know that the people that we're talking to expect that as well. So I think there's a certain degree of give and take. And I think that Andrew's comment here, can you separate family from business when working from home? I think the question is, should you even try to separate family from business when you're working from home? Because
so the answer is yes. You just need a curtain.
I was going to say, I now have doors, and that substantially helps.
On the other side of that curtain is my living room. And I will conduct interviews throughout the day. I'm interviewing candidates. Many a time I've closed shop for the day and gone to the dinner table only to have my children mock me for the things that I've been saying on these calls. So, yeah, you can separate it.
Of your family knowing your business.
Yeah, they're all in my business. Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that interview, the BBC guy. It's. Do you want me to share my screen? I've got the clip ready if you want to see.
Yeah, go for it.
I think you need to let me in. I'm sharing, I think, or let my screen share in.
It hasn't popped up yet. No.
Oh,
It's just gone.
There we go.
Right.
Oh. Run VT.
I love how she tries to sneak in. You can see everything.
So I remember when this happened. I mean, I'm sure lots of you do. I remember when that happened, and I remember the furore around the comments there. This was kind of at the start of COVID, and this was a guy who was a political commentator, and that was his big break, wasn't it? He was going out live on the BBC, and I think I think we as an audience and recipients of seeing that going on people's calls, I think we've softened to that, haven't we? Once upon a time, it would have been, I expect you to be in your office. I expect you to be wearing a shirt and tie. I expect you to be sitting up, bolt upright, having the video call. And now it's an altogether more relaxed environment. This is like having a coffee with somebody as that introductory meeting. And even when you're presenting, there's a more relaxed feel to it than perhaps there would have been 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was on a call the other week, and the ladies the person I was talking to, her cat kept jumping on the table, and initially, with the cat's tail swishing in front of her face, it was quite off-putting. But I certainly felt like it was normal in the end, as opposed to 2, 3, 4 years ago when you had an interruption, kids, animals. It was a frustration
or mortifying.
Yeah.
The flexibility allows us to be, more human, right? So people get a better sense of who we are, and we don't feel that we need to put up as much pretense, which is, any pretense. And that's a benefit for everyone, because those masks are no good. They're not helpful to us when we want to relate with people. But it also requires us to have more boundaries, right? We have to be more intentional about our boundaries. And that's going to be different for everyone. You know, Adam doesn't mind, using his phone to answer questions at 10 o'clock at night. But someone else might need to, stop and say, okay, after 7 o'clock, I'm not going to do that. Now, when it comes to my family, it's really helpful to me to have the boundary of the door. They know when the door is closed, hey, Dad is working. But they also know when I'm downstairs and I'm with them, I'm fully present with them. I'll do my best to leave the phone, leave the laptop, and that's their time. And so I've created boundaries around that. Now, the other thing that is a great benefit that I love about working at home, my daughter said, Daddy, you love work. Because I spend so much time doing it. I said, no, I don't love work, but I need to work. And so it's good for them to see that the way you make progress to achieve your goals is through hard work. Right? So I'm modeling that for them. And then they take that and they apply it to their schoolwork. They say, we have to, I got to focus. I've got to do this work. That's what Daddy does. And that's what I need to do. So that's one of the great benefits of having your kids see, how much you work and help them to understand why that's important.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, it's part of who we are and also part of our upbringing. So when I was very young, my dad worked in London. When I was maybe 10, my dad worked from home, and he was an architect and he loved what he did. So he would work at weekends and he would work in the evenings because he never viewed it as work. He viewed it as his calling. And whenever I've either worked for somebody or worked within my own business, I've always tried to adopt the same thing, the same attitude. I love what I do. If I don't love what I do, I need to change it or change what I do, because it's such a huge part of your life. And I think that if you're stuck in a job that you don't like, or doing something you don't like, or working with people you don't like, then it becomes much more of a stressful, unpleasant environment where you do need to decompress and you do need to get away. But when you work with people that you love and you work doing something that you love and you genuinely feel that you're contributing something, then it's a joy to do it. And it shouldn't be the only joy you have, but it's perfectly okay for you to equally enjoy doing your work and going out for dinner with your family and playing the guitar and going for a bike ride and anything else that you do. Because why should you compartmentalize work as being the thing you have to do rather than the thing that you love doing and you earn money as a byproduct? Yeah, so I think that instilling that or giving that as a boundary for the people around you is really important. But I mean, on the call, we've got a proper family business as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. I think Vincent and I are both familiar with, throughout our upbringing, Dad working non-stop because he loved what he did. There was also the sort of pressure, I guess, while he was still in the corporate world. But it definitely, I think, as you said, Lenwood, sort of taught us what we needed to do to achieve what we wanted. And he knew that he had to put that work in so that when he could take us out on holiday and then he could enjoy that time with us. Although there were a few times where he was sitting in the lobby trying to get Wi-Fi to close the deal. But yeah, no, I think it's valuable for us to have witnessed that.
I think there's a funny thing. I mean, I agree with what we've been saying about kind of digital has made this process go much faster, much quicker, and really bring it home. But I was kind of reflecting when I was growing up, and I remember must have been about 87 or 88 when my father got his first car phone, which was one of those fitted in the car with the big curly wire and all that kind of stuff. And first of all, before all the safety stuff came in, he'd actually physically be holding it to his ear, and then the loudspeaker hands-free started to come in. So we then started to get an insight, because he would then have these kind of business calls, and of course the phone would go, and it's like, oh, there's a number, right? Everybody shut up, you've got to pretend you're not here, and he'd go off and have a business call. So started to get that insight as to what he did, and how he worked. He was in sales, so lot of calls, trying to deal with problems, paper sales and things like that. So I think it's kind of been coming gradually. And if you go back further in history, I think, as you said at the start, Adam, people might occasionally be taken into their father's or mother's place of work and got a glimpse or insight. Certainly in the kind of summer holidays, if there was some extra filing that needed doing, that the company, especially when he set up his own company, then my brother, sister and I could go and do that and earn a couple of bob doing it. So kind of progressively it came on. But I think, the big accelerator has been moving to digital, and then the even bigger accelerator was COVID, because we were all at home. We couldn't go into the office, and it became our offices.
But has that been a good thing for you, Will?
Well, it kind of coincided as well from moving from corporate into setting up my own business. So, I think the funny thing was, when I was in corporate, I used to spend far too much time at work, but it was very much that kind of process that Tracy was talking about, that I always felt when I left work and I wouldn't have to bring it home. So I prefer to stay and work later in the office, but know that I was done when I came back, and have that decompression that you talked about, Tracy. I think that was a really nice kind of way when you got home, you were kind of relatively normal, although my family might have had a different perspective on that. 2 or 3 years with my own business, and you've got the office here on site, never kind of totally switched off. And I think it does come to that bit of, okay, I'm not now doing travel and decompressing, so how am I going to build that into my day to day? And most of the time I will go out for a walk at some point, either lunchtime or when my wife comes back from work. But there will be days when I'm kind of working quite intensively, and I forget to do that, and I kind of feel it afterwards, and then kind of reflect and say, oh yeah, you're kind of even more wired because you haven't had that ability to kind of step away. So, I think Len would use the word, one of my favorite words, intention, earlier on, and it is about being intentional, if you can, depending on your workload, to kind of take that step away.
I as Will was talking, it just reminded me of this book by Cal Newport. It really is a great book. I don't know if anyone else has read it. It's called Digital Minimalism, and it's about shutting off the digital communications, and why it's so important in this noisy world, whether you're doing that because you need to decompress or you need to do focused work. It's really important. I think one of the things that is such a big challenge for so many people, and why we see the numbers I think what is Future Forum actually just came out with their winter study on work, and in there's some statistics on burnout. I think one of the reasons why we're seeing such high levels of burnout and overwhelm is because people have not yet internalized the boundaries that Will was talking about, right? So when we had to go to work to do work, and then we left, that created a physical, just think back before email and cell phones, right? That created a boundary for us, right? So we didn't need to create the boundary. And just over time, there's been a creep with every digital technology, cell phones and email, and now the smartphone, that has totally eliminated the boundary. So now what we have to do is we have to create those boundaries internally ourselves. That's not going to cure the feeling of overwhelm, but it will help significantly. And it's actually, I mean, the reason why I brought it, I didn't mention this, but I had this problem. I had this problem. I read this book and I said, hey, I'm on it. I'm doing it. Thanks, Cal.
Well, and I think that's the point, right? Is that like we don't have that practice of creating our own boundaries, so we don't know how to do it. And so you need to start from somewhere. And sometimes you'll create a boundary that works, and sometimes you'll create a boundary that doesn't work. And you just have to kind of like figure out what are those things that work for you, because it's easier. Theoretically, it's easier for someone else to impose boundaries on you, and you just meet them, right? They tell you what they are, you meet them, and you just do it. You check the box, you say, I'm done with boundaries. But when you're creating them on your own, especially if you're creating them to build your own unique work-life harmony, then you have to figure out how to do that. And it takes some time.
Richard
Can I
makes
make one more point actually on this, which is that I'd love to see enterprises taking on more of this personal development kind of a training that they haven't really been doing. Sorry, Tim.
Richard makes a really good point about taking time out and walking. I know people that actually, you know, they're at home, they put on a shirt, they may even put a tie on, and they walk around the block, and they actually come back and sit at their desk. And then at the end of the day, they get up from their desk and they walk around the block, and they come back, and so in effect, they're still going with that decompression time of saying there's a point of travel that I go through where I become in work, and a point of travel where I go through and I'm at home.
That's the
I think
Superman
many of us.
strategy, which is on page 232 of this. I'm kidding. There's no.
Well, okay, there's something I want to say about that though, because this is also then assuming that you have like a start and then a work day and then an end.
Yes.
Right. Because for me, that is absolutely not my thing. Right. Like yesterday morning, I got up, I did like an hour worth of calls. I did about a half hour worth of writing. And then Nicholas told me I had too much screen time. So I left and we started
The
had
cream puff.
breakfast. We did our cream puffs. I went back, had a call, went back, did pastry cream, right? Came back for another 2 hours of calls, had dinner, came back for another 2 hours of calls. So there's like a lot more back and forth, especially when you do like really take that ownership of like, this is my day. And I can actually do with my day what I like. Like for me, and I've been like this since I went to university, I'm mostly useless at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I love to get up early and do stuff in the morning. And then by 2 o'clock, it's like, I should have listened to my body all along. That's when my body needs a break. But then if I give my body a break at that time, I can come back and I can do more work later. And so there's more shifts that happen. So when there's more shifts that happen, it's when I'm thinking about this decompression time now, I actually feel like I need less decompression time because my corporate work was work I did because I was good at it. And I worked my way up to like a vice president level. And then there's all this pressure on you to like do things that and most of them I was just like, I wouldn't do this, right? And so you need that, no joke, at least 20% of the time, that decompression time in my commute was me crying in my car, right? That's not doing something that you love, right? That's doing something that pays you money. And a lot of us have that as part of our career, right? Like we have those pieces of our career where we do things because we need money, and that's okay. But I think when you're building a business and a home life that is integrated and you're building it in an integrated way, then you don't necessarily need decompression time, because literally I can come off of a call and I can either come off of a like really, this felt like really hard and I had to work my way through it, and I can go and play with Nicholas, and that's my decompression time, right? We sing a Planet song and then everything is fine. And so there's a difference, right? Not that a walk is bad, a walk is great. But there's maybe more puzzle pieces when you do the transition back and forth during the day.
But isn't the point? So I've worked for myself as a sole trader. I've worked in small businesses. I've worked in large businesses, and from my very first job, which was working in an off license, like a liquor store, as you would say in America, I used to work. Sometimes I wouldn't finish until 10 o'clock at night, and then when I went to work in the hi-fi industry, would work during the day in the store, and then would go out in the evening and install the hi-fi for people. So sometimes I wouldn't leave a customer's house until 11 o'clock at night. So the idea of effectively clocking in and out emotionally has been completely absent from my life. When I was a child, my father worked in the evening and at the weekend sometimes. When I got my first job, it seemed perfectly normal. And when I studied as a musician, obviously, you study during the day and then you go and play in a concert in the evening, which starts at 7:30 and finishes at 10. So the idea of working at night, the idea of traveling during the day, when I met Tim and, we were working in Oracle, I would travel a lot. The idea that I would get a plane on Sunday afternoon rather than Monday morning, so I would be flying on my time rather than the company's time, I never thought twice about it. And I never thought to myself, okay, well, I've given you 4 hours of my time here, which means that I'm not coming into work tomorrow morning. Although my boss was really good about that. And he would always say, no, we traveled over the weekend, so you must take the next day off. But I've never felt that to be a hardship. I've just felt it to be the way that things are, because I've always enjoyed or tried to enjoy what it is that I do. Now, if I did a job that I hated, if I did a job that didn't fulfill me, if I did a job that didn't require me to meet people and have interesting conversations and debates, I might have a very different perspective on this. And I'm not saying that working in a factory is a bad thing to do, but what I am saying is that working in a factory would kill me. The repetition of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I would absolutely want to clock in the morning and then clock out and say, that's not my problem now. That's for you to solve. I'm going to go home and do something else. But I think that Michael's comment here, small business is personal. I think actually, aren't we all in small businesses? Even when we're in big businesses, aren't we in small businesses? Because we're responsible for our bit of that. And whether that bit is you and your team or just you, you're responsible for it. And you have to craft that in a way that suits you and in a way that fulfills you, so you get joy from it. Because if you hate what you do, it's 8 hours a day every single day. You spend more time doing that than you do with your life partner.
But it's funny, Adam, what you say, and I mean it's great because I think probably all of us on the call feel the same way, that we're really engaged in our businesses, we really enjoy them. I forget how long ago this survey was done, but I think it's been repeated. The stats that they kind of say in terms of the people who don't feel engaged in their jobs, is something like 70 to 85% of the people in the workforce.
How many, sorry?
75 to 80% do not feel engaged in their work.
Yeah.
I'll try and find out where but as I say, I think it's been repeated. But I mean,
yeah, I think
we're lucky.
Gallup does a survey similar to that, and it's usually, and even this year, I think the points are down. Like more people are feeling disengaged at work, and this is the thing, right? Like I think this is really amazing. Your experience, Adam, and my experience is that like my dad went to work. He worked all the time. My mom was mad that he worked all the time. Right? She's the one who she was a stay-at-home mom, so she drove us around, and there were times we would go to pick up my dad and drive around the block, waiting for him to come out. And he worked a lot because felt like he had to work a lot because it was his job to make the money, and because my mom stayed at home, and he doesn't love what he does. And now he's a consultant and he still doesn't love. I hear him on the phone sometimes when he's at my house, and I'm like, just angry, right? Just mad. And so when you grow up with that, then that's what you grow up expecting work to look like, right? So it's really cool that you had that example at home that shows you, yeah, maybe you can work at all hours, but you do it because you're doing something you love. And a lot of people don't have that role model growing up. And it's super interesting for me because I didn't have that. And like my dad's super hard worker, right? My mom used to be a nurse. So like there's also a lot of structure in the healthcare arena, right? So like that is just what they knew. And that's what they showed us because that's all that they know. And now for me, I did that. I did that for 15 years. And I was like, this is the worst. Why would you do this for your entire career? And hence why I left. And now I get to show Nicholas something different because I do get to do what I love. But 5 years ago, I wasn't doing something that I loved. I did something that seemed responsible, that like looked good, right, to society. Vice president of a tech company, right? That looks good. And just got to the point where I realized that for me, all of this look good stuff isn't meaningful to me. And so I'll try something else.
I wanted to ask Jordan and Jensen to pipe up a little bit. We've all talked about, we've made the transition from the formality of the business office and the commute and so on. If you've even had that experience in your careers, I can't imagine you had it for very long. What is all of this stuff that we're talking about sound like to you? Give us a little insight there.
I'll jump in there, kind of. So as you were talking about, kind of doing a job that you love, it kind of fits perfectly, kind of with the old job that I had before coronavirus. Kind of having dad as an example of kind of getting up early and working hard. My previous job sometimes would require me to be in London from kind of 6 a.m. in the morning, and then kind of like yourself, Adam, I wouldn't leave London until 11 p.m. Sometimes getting home at 12 or 1 in the morning, and that kind of. I started off by loving my old job, but with the long hours and kind of having to go through that stress, I then started to almost learn to kind of hate my job, which is why I left and made the transition to set up a family business with Jordan and Alex, and kind of working through that now and being around for 2 years in the family business. It's something that I probably wouldn't change, because we have that almost commitment to each other that we're always going to work hard and help each other out. And there is also that flexibility with myself having a young daughter. Alex is very understanding and allows me to have that flexibility that if I need to take my young daughter to school, I'm able to, or if I need to pick her up, I can. Whereas if I was in kind of the corporate world or worked at my old job and in London, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I think there's pros and cons to everything, kind of working with family, as some people may not have a good relationship with family and may hate working with them.
Or let your daughter redecorate your house, Jensen. Which
exactly that.
Yeah, it's certainly not without its trials and tribulations. I think we can all agree. But just to revert to what I think various people said about boundaries, just being really clear with Alex, okay, I need you to take your boss hat off, and we need a father-son interaction here. I need, you to put your arm around me and tell me everything's going to be all right, sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's crucial to have those boundaries, and as well, we trialed a while back a yellow and red card system, where and that's you're feeling a certain way, and okay, I need just a bit of space, and it didn't stick around, unfortunately. I think we all got a bit carried away with it.
Did Dad get a few red cards? Thankfully, there were no fines for a red card like football.
I think we've got a really interesting comment here from Craig, who was the guest last week or the week before. There's a lot of emphasis on work-life balance. However, isn't it more fitting that we realise that work is part of life? And I think that that's a really big shift over the last few years. Where once upon a time, like you said, Jensen, about you would commute into the office, you would work during the day, and then you would commute home again. Things were very compartmentalized. Even in a digital world, they were very compartmentalized. And now, not only does the working from home thing blur those boundaries, also, I think our expectation blurs those boundaries. And it's reasonable to say that I've worked with Tim for 7 years. He's an interesting guy that does lots of stuff, but in part he is defined, not entirely, but in part, by what he does and the seriousness with which he does it and takes it. And I think that sometimes you can't reach Tim at 10 o'clock in the morning. Other times you can reach him at 10 o'clock at night. And it's this flexibility and the fact that we all of us feel an ownership of what it is that we do. And I didn't work with Tim directly when we were at Oracle, but I imagine that he was exactly the same at Oracle. You've got a question, you ask the question, he'll come back to you as soon as he possibly can to answer the question, whether that's 7:10 on a Monday morning or Sunday afternoon. It actually doesn't matter. And part of this, I think, is about people recognizing this whole work-life balance thing. And what you said, Will, if you're one of the 75% that is not engaged by your work, then you're doing the wrong thing. And there's a bigger question here about what is it that we're actually going to work for. When you're young, you think it's so you can buy a Ferrari and have a huge house. As you get older, you realize actually those things are not what you go to work for. You go to work to actually contribute something and to enrich yourself, not financially, but in terms of what you do and the people that you meet and the people that you work with. And I think that it's really important that people start to recognize that they need to take a role in steering their ship through their journey. That if you don't love what you do, you can't do 37 hours a week anymore. That's not how the world works, whether you want it to be or not. Unless you work in a factory, you can't do 37 hours a week. So given that you're going to be doing this for 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week or 70 hours a week at times, then you need to do something that has meaning for you.
Exactly. I mean,
let's get to this question that Jonathan Porter Ross has asked.
Yeah.
And because there's such a huge part of the world that is struggling with living an integrated life, which is the result of social media and pervasive technology, right? But Gen Z is different, because they've grown up with these technologies. So I really would love to hear what their perspective.
I'm technically still a millennial.
Don't
throw me in with them. No, I'm kidding. It's a really good question. So I'm sort of torn here. So I live in France, and the French are very much, when 5 o'clock comes, you stop working. When 12 o'clock comes till 2 o'clock, you have your 2-hour lunch break. I'm kidding. But it's to the point it's to the point where, as we all do, we work because we get carried away with the work because we're enjoying it and we know that it's meaningful and fulfilling. But there's been a few times where I've outreached French people, and it's been like, they've clearly set a boundary. It's 5:02. Don't message me. So I don't know, but additionally, I went on holiday recently with my partner, and I made an effort to not open my emails or LinkedIn while I was away, just so I could spend the quality time, because the convenience of having it on my phone, I could pop it open, drop a few likes and comments, and it was refreshing. And then I was hit with a mountain of emails when I got back from holiday, which sort of detracted from that.
You said it was refreshing, but was it stressful as well? Did you find yourself grabbing your phone and then going, no, I mustn't, and putting your phone down?
Yeah.
And how did you cope with that? How did you unplug when you were making a conscious effort not to, but your natural default habit and behavior was to do so?
I relied heavily on Megan, my partner. It was a slap on the hand. I was like, okay. Yeah.
The card, yeah. Jensen, what about you in terms of, because you've grown up with mobile phones and therefore people have got instant access to you. Have you seen? Do you need to go through and actually work out what the boundaries are?
Can I jump in there quickly, gents?
Yeah, go for it. I think I was going to say exactly what you're going to say, but go for it.
I'm pretty sure you
Is
spent.
Dad going to answer for you, Jensen?
Yeah.
Well, I guess he is, but I'm sure what he's going to say is So go.
Yeah. Well, no, tongue in cheek, but every time I kind of look over, I swear he's on Snapchat on his phone. And not working.
That's called productivity paranoia, Dad.
No, yeah. So I mean, kind of growing up around phones, I know it's something that I could work on. And kind of hearing Tracy say that her screen time was 4 hours. I know some weeks I've checked mine and it's been 8 hours. So kind of seeing the difference, kind of from kind of the Gen Z to others, I would say people Gen Z or people my age, if they don't have their phone, it's almost like they're going to die, and it really is. And I think that's just because we've kind of grown up with mobile phones, and if we need to contact anyone, it's there. We haven't lived through a period of time where we haven't had one. So for us, it's almost like we need it and we have to have it. And that even if our phone dies, it's almost like we die. So yeah, it's something I need to work on for sure is putting my phone down and setting boundaries. Even before I go to bed, I'll always check my phone, and it's actually, can I put my phone on my bedside table that is on the other side of the room so I can then sleep? It's something, I need to work on for sure. And I'm sure kind of it just consumes too much time, whether even if I am working or if I'm checking Instagram or Twitter, there's too much time being spent on my phone for sure.
There's a really great Simon Sinek video about him talking about millennials and their phones. And I think one of the stats he uses in there is that when having a choice of either losing your mobile phone or losing your sense of smell, something like 75% of Gen Z would rather lose their sense of smell than lose access to their mobile phone.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah,
but is that a bad thing? So I mean, it is what it is.
It depends where you live and what the area is.
I was going to say, who needs to smell?
I wasn't meaning specifically
Who needs
that.
to wash, Adam,
But this idea that this being wedded to our device is a bad thing, is that the case? Is it a bad thing? Because I don't think it is. Tim and I have always said that we've seen social and the use of social to be something to level the playing field, to give people opportunities, to allow people to make connections and create things for them to be their best selves. My kids, if I'm having a conversation with them about something, they fact check the statements that I make. They travel to the wonderful places that we're discussing. They do all of that stuff through this thing. So, and I get that we have a mature attitude towards social. We see it as a way of connecting with people in the way that we would have done in face-to-face events years ago, and we still do. But it's now maybe our first port of call. What we don't do is go into our bedrooms and cry when we only get 4 likes on a picture of ourselves out on a walk.
You don't.
And speak for yourself.
But I do think that there's for people that get what the opportunity is and are not hung up on judging themselves by others. The whole social and digital world is a fantastic opportunity, and it enriches every element of their life potentially.
Well,
I think
one of the
that you said there, was about digital maturity. That is the most, because that has an impact on whether this technology is good for you or bad for you, because there are very serious implications for people who, don't have the maturity. It's the reason why my 12-year-old daughter does not have a phone, and all her friends, everybody's got a phone. I can't communicate with anyone. I said, I know. That's good by dad standards. And then I explained to her, you don't have the maturity for this technology. And because you don't have the maturity for the technology, dad's creating the boundary for you. And I'm not giving in like the other parents. I don't think it's healthy for you to be on Instagram and all these, and what happens with girls and these platforms. So anyway, I think
I get that, but the question is, it's like when you try to, and it's not a criticism, but it's an observation. At some point, your daughter is going to have to face the world of social media.
Yeah.
At some point, your daughter is going to have to face the world of boys. At some point, although as a dad, that's not something we ever want to happen, of course.
No.
At some point, your family, it's not you, Len, but this is all of us, our children are going to have to meet people that are not like them, that don't come from privileged backgrounds, are not wealthy, are not well educated, are not middle class, are not whatever your normal group of people is. And I genuinely believe that we need to introduce that to people as soon as possible. Like the problem with sending your kids to private school is that they don't meet real people. They get really good education, but they don't meet people that ultimately they're going to have to deal with at some point during their life. And surely we need to try to get people to experience these things and form opinions and shape those opinions when they're malleable, so they can understand how these things form a part of the modern life and the modern world.
They just have to be healthy humans first. That's it.
I completely agree.
Tracy, did you have something to say?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to say just based on that is one, like digital maturity has to be built, right? So like, just like as we're teenagers and we grow up and we build maturity in general, we have to build digital maturity. So building digital maturity doesn't exist if you don't exist in the digital world. And so I think boundaries are good, and boundaries that are right for you. So for me, this keeps coming back to like, what feels good for you, right? I went on family vacation this summer, and I had like a client meeting that was already booked, and I'm like, I'm not going to schedule this. And so also on top of that, I'm going to schedule a networking meeting, digital networking in the morning. I'm going to do that. I'm going to have my client meeting, and then I'll meet you for lunch, right? And it felt so good because actually I needed that kind of experience to balance being with my family for 2 weeks straight. And so that was right for me. That doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. It doesn't mean like that whole time I took pictures of we went through the Rocky Mountains in Canada. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I took pictures of it and I posted it on social media because I wanted to. I didn't feel like it took away from my ability to be with my family. I didn't feel like, I don't know if it bothered other people, but it didn't bother me, right? That was part of the balance that I needed. I like to have my phone because I have a 4-year-old and the kid could do something amazing at any given moment. So to have the camera and the video available is something that I have. And I don't want to spend too much time, especially on things that I know are not contributing to me. So one of the things that I do when I track my usage on my phone is what apps am I using? If I'm using Duolingo to learn Spanish, great. I'm not actually going to trade that. If I'm using LinkedIn to have conversations, great. I'm not actually going to trade that. If there's other things like the color sort bottle game that makes its way into the top 3, then I'm wasting my time on my phone, and there's other things I could be doing in real life that's probably more beneficial. And so I think it is about just continually looking at What are the things that you do digitally that contribute positively to your experience? What are the things that you do digitally that contribute negatively to your experience as a human, as an individual human having your own experience, and build those boundaries that work for you. That's all.
Love that. If you like, if there's nothing else, I'm happy to share a funny clip about 217.
Share your funny clip, Alex. Go on.
Trying to dial a number on a rotary phone. It's the opposite end of the spectrum, you know. Can you hear it okay?
I can't hear anything.
Yeah.
4 minutes to dial that phone number.
I wish we could hear it.
Alex, when you click share, did it give you the option to play computer sound or computer audio? There might have been a little toggle switch after you click share.
Try that again.
Old people.
Let me just pull it up on my phone.
Yeah.
Can you hear it now?
No.
Their dad basically gave them a phone number, said you got 4 minutes to dial this number using a rotary phone, and they're just in the process of figuring it out, but they've not picked the receiver up yet.
Yeah, it's a clip.
It just reminds me because I train with this Peloton trainer who's always talking about like 90s technology. And it's interesting. It's like, if you know, you know, right? When they show the pictures of the like cassette tape and a pencil, and they're like,
yeah.
If you know, you know, right? And it's just like, but there's like a belongingness that exists in knowing, but is there like a relevance that belongs in knowing, right? Like in today's day and age, you just don't need to use a rotary phone to call anybody, right? And so it's fun and it helps. I love that it gives you like that. That's actually why I choose that trainer, is because she's always dropping this like random 90s knowledge. And I'm like, yes, I so am with you on this. And that's a belongingness thing, but it's not actually like, will I teach Nicholas how to dial a number on a rotary phone? Probably not.
Well, if he goes backpacking to Kathmandu, it means you won't be getting a phone call from him because he won't know how to use a rotary phone. So these things do still have relevance in some places.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like the great debate my mother and I have regarding handwriting. She laments the loss of handwriting as a skill. They don't even teach it in school anymore. My retort is always, and we don't teach hieroglyphics either.
Yeah. Yes. I remember the good old days.
There's some good comments in the chat. So Ruben Bradshaw, digital maturity. I use a laptop for meetings. For every other task, a smartphone. So I only need to be at my desk. Oh, there's one come in. So what Ruben's doing is he's separating work and that by desktop and mobile. And Jonathan says, and this is quite a long one, I think there's something new to think about. If you grow up with a phone as an extension of your consciousness, how is it ethically possible to force a separation? I can imagine that a new understanding of this paradigm could be found in something like a Zen meditation. We take retreats to mindfully detach from our consciousness to regroup and better understand how to be more expansively use both our minds and energy, an extension of our smartphones.
Wow.
While Tracy was talking, I thought I'd find out where it's got so if you go to settings on your if you've got an iPhone and then go to screen time, it actually tells you what screen time you do. and mine's down 14% from last week. So it's only 7 hours 41 minutes
Per day.
daily average.
Oh my god. 16 hours 48.
Is your phone on
Okay.
now?
I was going to say, you just like scroll while you sleep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And on that note, Alex has set a new world record. But joking aside,
16 hours 48 minutes. It is.
speechless.
Did you
Absolutely.
get it over 24 hours?
What's that? 8% down from last week.
Yeah, I mean that is a remarkable achievement. But it's been an interesting conversation, and I think that you know, we've only really scratched the surface of this idea of how do we meld a sustainable work-life existence. We've had some brilliant input from the audience. So Andrew, Jonathan, Nick, Ruben, Craig, Michael, Richard.
Good to see you, Jonathan.
James, everybody that's commented. Thank you all so much.
And thank you, Jensen, for being his first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jensen.
Welcome.
And thank you to everybody on the panel. As always, a fascinating discussion, and I think something that perhaps we should cover again, because it's really interesting as our thinking develops and technology develops. This will become an ongoing issue that we have to find ways of solving or mitigating or happily coexisting with. So thank you all. Until next week, have a great weekend.